Suzee, and I'd like to welcome you to Crochet, Knit and More with Suzee. And this is episode 4, Everything Old is New Again. And before I get into the podcast itself, I just want to take care of a few administrative chores here. And I just want to give you an idea where I can be found on the internet. I'm on Instagram under Suzee Makes One, and that's on the sign behind me. And that's Suzee Makes One. That's all one word. I can be found on Ravelry as Suzee, S-U-S-I-E, capital Q57. You can check out my projects. I've got one pattern I've released there recently. The show notes, the links to that will be there, as well as I have a group for the podcast listed as Crochet, Knit and More with Suzee under Ravelry. And I would urge you to join that group. That way you can keep up on future podcasts. Check out the previous podcasts. There's links to the show notes, links to my blog there, and I will be posting all information related to the podcast there where we can share information and talk about things. So I would encourage you to go there, check her out, and join up. That way you won't miss anything regarding the podcast. I also have a blog, and that's listed as Crochet, Knit and More with Suzee.blogspot.com. And there are complete show notes there. I will be releasing future crochet and knit patterns that I've designed. I've got one out there right now that is a free download. And I talked about that in a previous podcast, and that is a toilet paper tissue cozy. It's in the shape of a coffee mug. I think it's really cute. I like it, even though I say so myself. Check it out there. I think you'll like it too. It's a real simple pattern to make, and it's kind of neat to have that setting there. I had a lot of fun putting it together, and it's set. I released that one for free, so check that pattern out. And that's a free download from my blog, Crochet, Knit and More with Suzee.blogspot.com. I thought rather than just putting up pictures of this, I'm going to show you what that bathroom tissue cozy looks like. I'm going to hold it up here so you can see it. It's the one that looks like the coffee cup. Kind of give you an idea how large it is. And that's made to fit the large Charmin bathroom tissue roll. And that is on my blog. That's on Crochet, Knit and More with Suzee.blogspot.com. It's a free download. And if you'd like to get it, I'd encourage you to go. It's there for free. And I think you'll have fun putting it together. It's a very, very simple pattern. If you're just learning how to crochet, you want to learn how to crochet in the round, this would be a good project to learn on. It's got a little handle you put on. But anyway, that's the little mug. And if you like this episode, please hit the like button below. And I'd appreciate it too if you would subscribe. And if you do subscribe, just hit that little alarm bell next to that, and that way you'll be alerted each time I release a new podcast. So thanks a lot for that. I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe. I just want to let you know what I'm wearing. This is a recent finished object. It's crocheted. It's the Chic and Strong Crescent Shawl, and that was designed by Rohn Strong. And it's a free pattern from Red Heart. And Marley Bird also has a tutorial that goes along with it. It was crocheted with a 6.5 millimeter hook. That's a size K. With worsted weight yarn. I used a big Caron cake. It took one cake plus just I had two the big cakes. I had one cake that I used the complete cake for it, and it took just about maybe a 10% of the second cake. So totally I used about 665 yards on that. I believe that is somewhere in the neighborhood of 608 meters and approximately 330 grams of yarn. It was a fairly easy project to do. However, I did run into some trouble trying to figure out the chart and the wording for these edging scallops. And I found Marley Bird's tutorial very helpful to sort that out. I don't believe I could have probably finished it without that. So if you decide you want to make this, I would encourage you to check out Marley Bird's accompanying tutorial on YouTube. It was very helpful to me. I don't know if it was I had some sort of a mental block on it or what, but I'm quite experienced with crochet, and I had a little bit of trouble following the chart as well as the written information on the pattern. So just a suggestion, you may not have any problem with it, but if you do decide you want to try this one, I would recommend at least checking out that tutorial along with it. It's very warm. I think it's going to be very nice to wear under my coat this winter, but and I think it really came out nice, and it's quite warm. This could probably be made also with a DK weight yarn. The worst, it is quite heavy. You could probably make it with a DK if you wanted to. It's up to you. But anyway, before I get started with the Everything Old is New Again segment, I wanted to talk a little bit about a mini haul that I ran into at Hobby Lobby and JoAnn Fabrics recently. And without any further ado, this is my mini haul from the Hobby Lobby and JoAnn Fabrics. Hi guys, I'm in Hobby Lobby and I'm looking around at some of their sale books. And I found 4 of them here I cannot resist. 2 of them are sewing. And I'll give you a little bit more of a peek at these when I get them home. The first one is called, it's from Annie's Sewing. It's called Learn Easy Sewing Skills. It's like tote bags, aprons, quite a few little items in there. I'm going to get this. It was $11.99. It's $1.19. Here's another one. It's Quick and Simple Sewing Accessories. It's got some purse organizers in there. They're kind of neat. And I've got a lot of scrap material I need to use up. So I think that would be a really good helpful handy thing for that. This I need to look at a little bit more, but it's only 99 cents. And it is Big Knits Hollywood Style, fantasy inspired chunky knits. Let's see if it has anything in here. For 99 cents, I think it's well worth the investment. And the last one is by Melissa Leitman. And anybody who's been following crochet and knitting for any length of time would know she's quite a well-known designer. And this is a number of projects you can do with fringe. It's all crocheted. This book was $9.99. It's on sale for 99 cents. So I'm going to get that one too. It's got ponchos in it, purses and whatnot. So anyway, I'm going to get that one. And when I get home, we'll take a look at these and see if that's by Leisure Arts, and we'll see a little more detail on what these have to offer. Guys, I'm still in Hobby Lobby, and I found some yarn that's worth taking home with me. First one is Yarn Bee, Baby Bee, Sweet Delight Chunky, and it's a real nice, chunky, soft yarn. It's gray, called Toy Elephant. That would make a nice hat. And that is 80% acrylic, 20% polyamide. Really, really, really soft. It's $1.24. It was $4.99. So that's going to go home with me. Another thing I found too is I love this yarn Chunky. It's $1.24. It was $4.99. It's 100% acrylic. Really soft. It's not a totally saturated color, but it's very nice. And I got, this is called Peacock Tails. And I believe this is, let's see what the yardage is on this. 3.5 ounces. 109 yards. 100 meters. 100 grams. So that's, I think, a nice hat. So I'm going to get that. He said it's $1.24. It was $4.99. And last is the green. Last but not least is the green. This is Yarn Bee, Baby Bee. And this is a cotton. So it's a cotton acrylic blend, 50% each, I believe. Yep. It was $4.99, and it's $1.24. So I'm going to get that too. And I think that'll go with some of that cotton blend yarn that I got at Michael's a while back. Be a nice little blender for that. So anyway, that's it on that. Here at JoAnn Fabrics, and they're having a little bit of a sidewalk sale today in Southwest Michigan. We have a lovely day. Here's the buttons they've got on sale, and fortunately they don't know anything other than 97 cents. I was hoping they maybe mark these down to 50 cents. Anyway, they had that. Found these in kind of a lime green. I'm going to get those. Those are 97 cents. This I thought was pretty cool too. It spells out love. There's 4 buttons. Yep. And last but not least, thought these were cute. They're little hot dogs with a mustard on them. It doesn't look nice on her, cute on a kid's sweater or hat or anything. Anything you want to embellish. So I'm going to go inside and see if they got anything else on sale. Alrighty. Got into a little bit of a mini haul at Hobby Lobby. And I wanted to show you closer up. I showed you a little bit when I was doing it at the store, but I wanted to give you a little better closer view of it than what I could show you when I was at the store. And I got 3 skeins of yarn and a couple books. The first thing, I paid $1.24 for it. And this is this Baby Bee Yarn Bee Sweet Delight Chunky. Very, very soft yarn. I'm going to make a hat out of this. I'll show you in a future podcast what I ended up making out of it. But I believe a hat is screaming at me. I think I'm going to make a hat out of it. And I believe this is, the colorway is Toy Elephant. And it does kind of remind you of that color. So I'm going to use that. It's very soft. It's 100% acrylic. It was $4.99. I got it for $1.24. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. And I think I'm going to make a hat out of that. So that was the first item. Second item I got was I Love This Chunky. And I thought that was like the color thing in it. This is pretty soft too. It's called Peacock Tails. The color here, kind of a different, not a totally saturated color. Quite nice. And that's probably going to be a hat too, or maybe a small cowl. But I thought that was pretty cool too. That was $4.99, and I paid $1.24 for that as well. And the last yarn thing I got there was the Baby Bee Hushabye Solid. And I believe that's a cotton blend. Let me just check that out real quickly. Yes, it's 50% cotton to 50% acrylic. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to use this in, but I'm going to probably, I don't know exactly what I'm going to make with this. I'm thinking maybe some sort of a little blanket or something. Not exactly sure, but we'll figure this one out. But I thought it was too good to pass up. It was $4.99, and I paid $1.24 for it. And the colorway on this is Baby Sage. So, anyway, I thought I'd give you a little more of a close-up view of that. And that's the yarn that I got at Hobby Lobby. And I got some books, too, while I was there. And I'm going to show those to you real quick. I think there's 3 of them here. 3 or 4. Yeah. All right. 2 of them are knit and crochet, and 2 of them are sewing. The first one is a crochet book, and it's the Fringe Benefits. And I paid, I believe, 99 cents for this. Yep, and sorry about that. And it was $10. That's got some really cool things in it. Showing the front of it, I don't know if you can see this or not. It's showing some of the projects that are in there. Hold that still and then pull the other one up here. So I figured for $1, couldn't go wrong. And that's from Leisure Arts. And it was written by Melissa Leitman. And she's quite a well-known designer. As on the back of it, there's a purse. Sorry about the glare. There's a purse and a poncho on the back there. I thought were kind of nice too. So for 99 cents, couldn't pass that one up. Other one I got here is called Thread Selects Big Knits Hollywood Style. And that's all of the chunky type yarn. And this was 99 cents, and regular price was $9.95. So that was a good deal too. And that's got a lot of little nick things in it, like scarves, cowls, shrug. So I want to see what I can make out of this. And I figure if I can't make too much out of it, I haven't lost a whole lot for $1. So anyway, that was that one. These two I thought were quite intriguing too. This was $1.19. It was $11.99. And this is Learn Easy Sewing Skills. And it has quite a few little projects that you could make up without a pattern, which I thought was really nice. You can see in the back here the little project they got you making. There's a tote bag, an apron, placemats, coasters, all sorts of little things there. So I thought that was a pretty good deal for $1.19. And the last thing I picked up is called Quick and Simple Sewing Accessories. This had some really cool little things in it too. There's some tote bags in there I thought were pretty cool, and some things you could get to put in either a project bag or you could use in your purse like organizers. I thought were really nice. I want to see what I can do on that. I may make up a few and feature those in a future podcast. Then it had, like, on the back of it, it had a little scissors caddy thing to put if you're, sitting in a rocking chair, or you could use it, for your remote control or whatever you wanted to use it for, like a little caddy there on an armchair. I thought that was kind of neat too. So anyway, that's what I got book-wise at the Hobby Lobby, and that was my Hobby Lobby haul. And I also picked up a few little items when I was at JoAnn Fabrics. And I didn't get a whole lot there, but I had a couple little things that I picked up. I thought I would show you. Grab a hold of them here. There we go. I've been getting a lot lately in regard to buttons, and I thought these might come in handy for hats. It's kind of a weird color, but I don't have a lot of green stuff, but I thought maybe I could use that on something. And little green buttons, I got them for 99 cents. And there's 11 buttons in there. So we'll see what we can use those for. I thought this was kind of neat too. 97 cents. And it's LOVE. Letters. Buttons. And the last thing I got, and it was 97 cents. They're little hot dog buttons. I thought they were kind of cute. And I figured I could use those to embellish other things too. It doesn't necessarily have to be used as a button. I could use it as an embellishment on a hat or scarf, anything, Purse, tote bag, whatever. I just thought it was kind of cool. So, price was right. So anyway, that's my little bit of a mini haul there from JoAnn's and Hobby Lobby. Today when I was out at the Dollar Tree here in Southwest Michigan, I decided to check again like I normally do when I go to Dollar Tree. Maybe once every couple weeks I check to see if they've got any yarn in. I got a pretty good haul there back last spring. Spring of 2018, and I thought, from time to time I take a look-see and see if they've got anything, and today they did. So I wanted to share with you what I got at the Dollar Tree today. Another really cool haul. And this is quite a significant haul compared to what I got at the Hobby Lobby, yarn-wise anyway. So, without any further balderall, what I ended up getting were 10 skeins of this Premier Eversoft. Great yarn. I've used it before. Like I said, I think I got 5 skeins of this before this spring. Really liked it. I made a hat out of it, and I really liked it. It's very, very soft. It reminds me a lot of Karen's Simply Soft. It's got the same feel. It's very, very, very nice and cushy. The color I got here, I believe it's called light teal. And the thing that floored me was the fact that I bought 5 skeins of this last spring at the Dollar Tree in my local, I think it was, no, it was a different store. We have several of them here in our town. And I think we have 4 or 5 Dollar Trees. And the one I got it at before was fairly close to my house. This one was across town. And anyway, I got the 5 skeins last spring, back in April, and I bought 10 more skeins of this. But what floored me was the fact that the color lots are the same. The dye lots are the same. They match. So I can use this interchangeably with what I bought before. So now I have 14 skeins of this yarn. And I see probably either a nice afghan or a sweater. I think I'm going to probably go with a cardigan for this. But this is really, really nice and soft, and I love the color. And it's showing up fairly close. So anyway, it's called light teal. And you might check your Dollar Tree and see what they've got. They may have gotten another shipment of this. But it's great yarn. It's just lovely. $1 a skein. And I also got 10 skeins of another Premier yarn. This is called Dream. Now, they didn't have, neither one of these, they had, these were the only 2 colors that I could get. This is black. And I got a couple other skeins of, I think I got 4 skeins of this that I bought over the years. So I can use these interchangeably. I think I've got an eggplant color, which is kind of a purple. And I can't remember what the other colorway I got. I think it's some lavender. But this is very nice and soft too. The dye lots match. I got 10 skeins of this, and I think I'm going to probably make a poncho out of this. Haven't quite decided yet, but I think I'm seeing a larger garment out of this. But it's very soft. It's got a little bit of a halo to it. And you may try, I said, you may try your Dollar Tree and see what they've got here. I got these on the 26th of October. So hopefully if you get out there soon, you might be able to snap some of this up at your local Dollar Tree too. Out to Crochet O'Clock podcast. She's got some really neat things there. I've been watching her for a while. She was very encouraging when I started my podcast, so I wanted to give her a shout out. If you guys would check her out too, I'd appreciate it. I think you've really find it very interesting. This is the first installment of the Vintage Corner. In my first episode, I mentioned that I try to keep my crochet and knitting addiction affordable by using free or reasonably priced resources whenever I can. Now, one resource is my Vintage Crochet and Knit Book collection. I've been collecting crochet, knit, and craft books since starting this hobby back in the early 1970s. And I've kept a lot of my books. Now, some of them I got rid of over the years, through moving and, whatever. Sometimes you can't hang on to everything. But my favorite books I have held on to, especially the ones that talked about how to do a particular stitch or, something that I thought I might be able to refer to in the future. So I've tried to keep those whenever I can. Now, I've added to my collection in the past few years by buying used crochet and knit books basically from local and online thrift stores. Now, I would say the majority of my vintage books I found locally. Once in a while I'll go online if there's a particular book that I'm interested in, and I'll go to eBay or Amazon and pick it up there. Done that a couple times, and that's a real good source for your vintage books too. Now, some people make the mistake of devaluing the older books. They just don't see what that they offer. You know, they're old. I want something more current, whatever. And when you do that, you're missing out on all the great stuff that they do have to offer. Now, I've purchased many of these books for $1 or less, and when they were new, they sold for $25 or more. Now, when it comes to crocheting and knitting, many current patterns are based on previous versions of basically the same pattern. That's why I say when you devalue the older books, if you look at them or look through them, you might find something in there that is out in the current books right now. And you can get basically free patterns by going in and using the old books. All you have to do is change up the colors, change up the yarn you're using. You can go to today's colors. Maybe the pattern came out in the early 90s and it's got like that weird teal color and the blue together, or pink or whatever. You don't have to use that. You can use today's colors, whatever yarn you like. And it gives you some freedom and some, you can start designing your own stuff, or basically using what colors you want to put in something. Now, like I said, the designer may have updated the yarn, or in the newer things, they may have updated the yarn, tweaked a technique or two, but the overall pattern is pretty much the same as what it was originally. Now, you'll find this is especially true when it comes to afghans or throws, hats, mittens, pillows, scarves, shawls, socks, and some sweater designs. Now, that's why I called this episode Everything Old is New Again. Because if you look in the older stuff, you're going to find new things. And that's my point. So if you have been crocheting or knitting for a while, you may have probably noticed some very familiar designs reappearing. A good example of this is with your granny squares. Now, as you know, granny squares can be made in the traditional way. And that's when you do, the granny square in like the moldy colors for the interior part of the square, and then you take your border squares and make them in a dark color, usually black. Now, a designer may have updated the granny square by using new color yarns or weights, or varying the size or shapes of the granny squares that they're using in a particular afghan. So they might take circles and squares or triangles or whatever and use them interchangeably in that particular design, or vary the colors, whatever. They update it, and you can see a lot of different granny square things made. And basically the granny square hasn't changed over the years. The things that have changed with the granny square is the colors, or the yarns, or the way the shapes are used. Another example is the corner-to-corner stitch. Now, I first noticed this stitch in the early 1980s. It could predate that. I don't know everything there is to know about this. The first time I saw it, like I said, I've been at this a while. First time I saw the corner-to-corner stitch was back in the early 1980s. Now, it may go back earlier, and maybe one of my viewers out there, if you know if you've seen it earlier than that, let me know. Leave a comment below saying, hey, Suzee, I saw that someplace in 1962. Or I saw it in 1972. It could be that old. I don't know. But all I know is I've seen it reappear over and over again since the early 1980s. And it reappeared a few years ago. Now, the corner-to-corner is used, if you're not familiar with it, it's used to make triangles, squares, or rectangles. And it's a very versatile stitch. And by varying the colors, you can make pictures or quilt look squares from the corner to corner. And I'll place a picture showing a few examples of quilt look blocks that were made with the corner to corner stitch, and I'll put that in next. If you are interested in learning how to do corner to corner stitch, go to the Crochet Crowd's YouTube tutorials. If you're not familiar with the Crochet Crowd, he does a lot of tutorials. His name's Mikey Selleck, and he has just tons and tons of tutorials on YouTube on how to do different types of crochet stitches, granny squares, corner to corner, all sorts of stuff. So check out Mikey Selleck at the Crochet Crowd on YouTube. And he, like I said, his tutorials, he makes it real simple, easy to follow along with, and you can't go wrong watching Mikey Selleck of the Crochet Crowd if you want to learn how to do a particular stitch or technique. Once you know how to do the corner to corner, and it's not that hard to pick up, it's a quick stitch to master. Once you know how to do it, you've got a lot of versatility, and you'll be able to make your own scarves, shawls, and afghans without a pattern. Now, when I'm looking for a different pattern or inspiration for a new project, I refer to my vintage crochet and knit book collection. Now, this keeps my hobby affordable and also gives me some really good reference information. Occasionally, I will be featuring a few of my vintage books and magazines from my collection on the podcast that I find helpful and recommend to others. For the first Vintage Corner, I will be reviewing 3 of the comprehensive crochet and knit reference guides that I recommend. Now, book number 1 is the Reader's Digest Complete Guide to Needlework. This was published in 1979 and it's been reissued several times since then. Copies are available from thrift stores, Amazon, eBay, and other online used booksellers. I think I got mine at Goodwill here locally. I paid $1 for my copy. If you can't find it locally in a thrift store, you could probably get it for about $1 at a thrift store or garage sale. If you have to go online to find it, you'll probably pay $7 or $8 for it. Most booksellers offer it for less than $10. Here's what it looks like. I'll hold it up here. The cover may be a little bit different on a reissuance. I have a first edition here. This is published in '79. This is the most comprehensive guide to crochet and knit I've ever found. It also has related guides for embroidery, needlepoint, applique, quilting and patchwork, macrame, rug making, and lace work. And embroidery is especially helpful as once you've been crocheting or knitting for a while, you may have to apply duplicate stitch to a project. So you'll need to know some basic embroidery stitches to do duplicate stitching. So it's handy to have that in there as well. Now, both new and experienced crocheters and knitters will find this book extremely useful. Along with the crochet and knit guides, this book has project patterns to apply this information. And I marked a few sections of this book I just wanted to show to you briefly so you can kind of get an idea what's in there. So the first section I want to talk to is, and this is great, like I said, for beginning knitters or even people that have been at it for a while if you need to review some things or you're not sure of whatever. Let me show you this. This is the whole section on knitting. You can see how comprehensive that is. It's quite lengthy. And the first section talks about, shows you how to knit. And it also talks about yarn, your knitting supplies. I'll show that to you. And I've seen a lot of this information very similar to this in the new books. Talks about your knitting supplies, how to knit, following knitting patterns. Also has quite a section on knitting abbreviations. how to get gauge and how to measure for that. It's one thing I didn't really pay much attention to. I didn't want to waste my time on gauge, so I'd go ahead and knit a whole project and not check the gauge. And I made a sweater. The first sweater I made, it had a lot of cabling in it. Took me months to make. Came out wonderfully. It looked great. And I went to try it on, and guess what? It was way too big on me. It would have fit somebody about 3 sizes larger than me. So that was an epic fail. So after that, I learned my lesson. When I do anything, I make sure I might get my gauge fairly close to what the pattern called for. That was not good. And it shows you how to, you know, here's your DPNs, double pointed needles, how to work those, you know, just some knitting instruction, how to cast on. Circular knitting, that's that whole section is a circular knitting. And, oh, yeah. Yeah, it also has even a section on it, surprises me, with your cable. Circular, which is great. The thing that really surprised me that this book has to offer is it's got probably about 90 some knitting stitches in there and how to do them. Now I bought stitch books, stitch dictionaries, and I paid quite a bit of money for those. And yes, there are obviously more stitches in those, but for a guide like this to offer 93 different stitches, I thought that was pretty good. It's got color pictures in there, what the stitch looks like when you get done with it. And a few of the examples in here, you got textured stitches. The textures, ribs, diagonals, laces, cross stitches, cables, novelty stitches, knotted stitches, Aran knitting, directions for how to do a sweater, multicolor knitting. That'd be like your Fair Isle and kind of good stuff. Twisting yarns to change colors, stranded method, jacquard patterns using stranded weaving method, jacquard patterns using weaving, charting a pattern stitch. But I thought this was really great when it came to, you know, all the stitch pattern, or the stitch patterns in here. It's wonderful. Now, I'll kind of give you an idea what's in here. Here's an example of the color work. Gives detail on how to knit garments. Here's a little bit more on the color work. Quite a large section on that. Then it also gives a little detail on how to knit from charts and the charting abbreviations. I normally work from the written pattern myself. I learned that way, and I'm kind of, you kind of tend to go with how you've learned. But I'm starting to get now into knitting off charts, and I find that easy too. So, but this gives quite a bit of information on how to go about doing that too. And it talks about shaping, how to do collars on sweaters, and explaining how the shaping works, which is great. Now, this talks also too about crochet. So I do both knit and crochet, and you can tell by the name of the podcast. I'll change from one to the other. I'll get tired of knitting, crochet for a while. Get tired of crocheting, go back to knitting. This book also has comprehensive information on how to crochet. There's the crochet section there. It also has same type of thing, is set up the same way as what it is for your knitting section. It goes into detail on your tools and your yarns. Then it talks about how to crochet. It gives you all sorts of information on how to do your chain stitch, how to start out, how to do your different stitches, your simple stitches, forming your elementary stitches. And then it goes into how to make different shapes. So circles, triangles, ovals, squares, how to do that. It also talks about geometric shapes worked in rounds. So you got a little bit on your granny squares, your motifs. Then it gives you a simple hat pattern to crochet, which you could design any way you wanted to. I thought that was really, really nice. Then, just like the other book did, or the other section did for your knitting, it gives you all those crochet stitches. And I'll just read off a few of those that are in there. You've got your textures, your shells, your clusters, motifs. And a motif, I didn't know this until they explained what a motif was. And it's composed of stitches worked around a center ring, and that's a motif. So that would encompass your granny squares, triangles, anything you start from a circle and work out from. And it also talks about, it gives stitches for your mesh stitches and filet crochet. And filet crochet is where you form pictures out of kind of a lacy work, kind of a doily type thing. It's a little too fiddly for me, but some people might like doing it. And also, here's your when they talk about motifs. Here's some examples of motifs. Right here on the side, those flowers. But a motif would also be a granny square, or a granny triangle, or a granny hexagon, or whatever. Anything that starts from a center ring and works out from there is a motif. Then it goes into detail on your color work. Here's the filet crochet that I mentioned. You can see the pictures there. Designs and pictures you can do from the filet. I've seen it worked up little pictures of like bunnies and ducks and bears and whatever. Well, anything you can have any kind of picture on it you can imagine. That's your filet crochet. Talks about Irish crochet. Kind of fine work, kind of lacy stuff. Those of you that might be interested in that. Then it goes into a little more detail on your color work. Examples of how to do that. Then it also gives you information on how to work from charts. Right there. There's a lot of stuff written up anymore like that. That virus shawl that is quite popular on the internet is all from a chart. And it does give you a number of patterns that you can work from. And here's some information about how to do crochet ribbing and examples of different types of ribbing you can do. How to do buttonholes. And then with crochet, there's an awful lot of edging you can do if you want to put it on a towel or the bottom of a sweater, a scarf, what have you. And there's examples in there of different types of edging you can do, and there's lace edging, there's all different kinds. Picot, edgings and insertions. So, and it also has quite a section on Tunisian crochet too. Those of you that are interested in that. I don't know if you're familiar with Tunisian or not. You do it with, the real long hook. And you hold your stitches on the hook every other row. It's actually a 2-row repeat. You go across. You can, if you're not familiar with that, check it out on YouTube. There's a number of tutorials out there on how to do Tunisian. Or just check out the Tunisian Simple Stitch, and I'll kind of give you an idea how that's worked. But I really recommend this book if you can find it out there. It's a great book to have in your collection. It's a wonderful reference guide. The Reader's Digest Complete Guide to Needlework. All right, that's that one. The second book that I recommend is, now I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with this series of books. It's the Dummy series. And they have one Actually, there's two different versions of it. It's called Knitting for Dummies. The one that I have in my collection is by Pam Allen. It was published in 2002. Marley Bird has a revision of this. I think they published that in 2013, where they updated this. I haven't had an opportunity to look at Marley's updated version of it. I'm sure it's really good. But if you don't want to spend full price for something, you want to find something that would be very helpful, would be this Knitting for Dummies book. Now, the one thing that I can warn you about with this, if you're really into color, you're not going to find a lot of color pictures in here. Now, there are some examples in the center of the book showing projects in color, but it doesn't show the stitches in color. And that is one thing, it is a little bit of a downer for this book. But other than that, it's a great reference book. Now, it's a complete guide, a knitting guide, and it covers anything anybody really want to ever know about knitting, from the basics, how to do various stitches, color knitting, stripes and ferrule, circular knitting, knitting equipment, your yarns, recommended knitting books, etc. There's a whole section in there on the knitting books that they recommend to pick up. Now, some of these, if you don't want to spend the money on them, check them out of your local library. You might not be able to find them all, but I bet you could find probably 75% of them in there. A lot of the times, if I want to check out a book, I'll get it out of my local library, and if it's something I really like, then I'll purchase it. Now, I do buy new books occasionally, or I might try to find an older version of a new book. You know, buy it used. You can get a little bit of a price break on that. But I normally will check something out of the library just to see if I like it or not, and if I don't, I'll take it back. If I want to maybe work up one pattern out of it, I like it for that, I'll maybe get the book out for that, and if I don't like the whole thing or whatever, I'll just take it back. Now, I purchased this book at a local thrift store for 75 cents. And I hesitated before I got it. I thought, I don't know, really, I know how to knit. Why would I want a book for dummies? I know how to do this. I thought, no, it's just, you know, I was beyond that point, and I thought, well, I'm not really a beginner anymore. Why would I want this? But I thought, okay, for 75 cents, I'll take the plunge. And I'm glad I did, because it really does have a lot of information, and I was surprised. And it's quite comprehensive in regard to what it offers. I would recommend it. If you can find it, you know, at a thrift store, great. If you see it at the thrift store, snap it up. I would. If you can't find it at a thrift store, check it out at your local library. I'm sure they have a copy of it. They may have Marley Bird's copy or Marley Bird's version of it too. Maybe that's got more color in it. I don't know. It might be better, you know, for the color. But I really didn't need, the black and white showed me well enough what I needed to know and what I needed to see. I said this is a great reference guide if you can find one for like $1 at a garage sale. But I recommend this book too. And it's really got a lot of information on there, what other knitting books to pick up. So, Knitting for Dummies by Pam Allen. Recommend this one too. And the last vintage reference book is the Complete Stitch Dictionary. This was published in 1988, and I got it through one of those book clubs back around about that time, about 1988. You know, back, I don't know, maybe the younger people might not know about this, but they used to have those book clubs where you had to order 5 books, and you got them for like $1 or $2. And the deal of it was once you ordered the 5 books, then you had to agree to buy 5 more books at the regular price in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And they would send you stuff once a month, and you'd look through the catalog, and you'd pick out a book or 2 or whatever. You'd say, no, I don't want anything this month, and I'll get something next time around. This is a wonderful guide. It has complete instructions to knitting and crochet, along with the techniques and related stitches. This has been a wonderful reference guide for me to have. I looked it up, and copies of this are still available on Amazon, and you can probably find it at a thrift store near you. And you possibly may be able to find a copy of it at a local library. Check it out. I recommend you checking this out. It has a real extensive stitch dictionary for both knit and crochet, and it gives a really, really comprehensive guide to Tunisian crochet if you're interested in that. And I've got a few sections of this book marked that I wanted to show you, just to kind of give you an idea of what's in it and what it looks like. Now, with the knitting section, it shows about casting on, binding off, you know, how to do your basic knitting stitches, how to start knitting. This book is good for beginners through advanced. It's great. This is the first section here. It's a little dated, the way the graphics are in there. It's a bit dated, I'll give you that. But the information in there is still up to date. Gives you abbreviations for your knitting. I'm going to show you the stitch dictionary in here. It's got a number of stitches, and it's got very good color pictures of it too, and your instructions are great. That'll give you an example of what the knit stitches look like in there. And it shows you how to do pattern stitches from knit and purl stitches, drop stitch patterns, slip stitch patterns, eyelet stitches, like your lace work. Fancy stitches. Quite a few of these. I bet there's at least 100 stitches, different stitch patterns in here. It talks about how to work cables. It gives you a lot of instruction on that and different examples. There's probably 15 pages of that in there. How to do Aran patterns, or Aran patterns, excuse me. Multicolored pattern. It also has a little section on how to knit with beads. And if there's anything you'd ever want to know how to do, but if you ever need to know how to do it, it's in there. This book also contains a comprehensive section on crochet. And it's very similar. So like the graphics there, and there's your crochet section. Off to the side, it gives you your basic crocheting information, how to get gauge. And then it goes into it's laid out similar, your abbreviations, how to, for beginners, how to start to crochet, the simple, start your basic stitches, how to crochet in the round, how to increase, decrease, that type of thing. And it also has a lot of patterns, stitch patterns in here, just like it does with the knitting section. And very good color pictures on how to do the stitches, as well as instructions on how to do it. Great book. It's got relief stitches, which would be like your raised stitches, fan stitches. Next section, example of those, your fan stitches. Fancy stitches. Cluster stitches. There's bobbles over there on that side. Lacy stitches, I won't go into all this, but how to do color work. Here's some examples of that, along with the instructions. And then the next section, it goes into how to do Afghan crochet. And basically what they're talking about there is granny stitches. So you got your regular granny, how to do that. And there's your triangular granny, or half a granny square. And instructions on how to do that. And on the other side, it's got octagonal. It's like a pentagon, a octagonal shape. So octagon, hexagon, and pentagon. There you go. I'm not too good on my gons there. But that's what it's talking about. So you've got your first one is a pentagon. That's your 5-sided. Then you got your hexagon, which would be what? 6-sided. And then your octagon, which is 8-sided. Remember that from high school. Okay. Which I think is great. Then it talks about medallions you can make and how to make those and examples of each one of those with the instructions. Then it talks about how to use beads and how to do your edging along with the instructions. So it gives a lot of examples of different types of edging you can do. So I said this is a great book. Then it talks about your filet crochet and how to do that. There's all sorts of instructions on that in there. Then it goes into detail on Irish crochet and how to do that along with the instructions. Then it talks about hairpin crochet. Now that's something I've never been able to master. And some of you out there know how to do that. I take my hat off to you. I've tried that many a time, and I just can't seem to get the hang of it. And that's where you get those 2 pin things, and you work between the 2 of them. And I'm sure there's probably some tutorials out on YouTube on how to do that. But I've just never been able to wrap my head around that thing. And what I really like about this is it gives a lot of information on how to do Tunisian crochet. It's a wonderful resource for that. It's great. There's probably, I don't know, 20-some pages in here along with the stitches and instructions on how to do that. And when I was first trying to learn how to do Tunisian, I've done a little bit with Tunisian. I made 1 afghan with the simple stitch. And I've made a couple hat bands and hair bands with that. And I really like the stitch. It is a little yarn hungry. But I tell you, it makes some very warm fabric because it's basically double-sided. It's thick. It's very thick. But you can do it. It's got a lot of versatility to it. That's something I think I'm going to get into a little bit more here pretty soon, is maybe checking out a few more tutorials on that. But the problem is with the tutorials, once you see the tutorial, and that's it on that book, but the problem is with the tutorials, once you've looked at the tutorial, that's great. And it's difficult sometimes. I have to have something to refer to in writing to kind of get it, get it in my head. And a lot of times I don't want to sit and make notes on it or whatever, and I don't want to look at that tutorial 4 or 5 times. So if I got something written down or something I can refer to in writing, which these books provide, I can go and look at, let's say like the purl stitch, because there's a purl stitch with Tunisian. I can watch it on the podcast, on a tutorial, see that person do it several times, maybe start working something up. If I set it aside, I can go back and refer to my book here, and it'll give me the steps on how to do that. So it's helpful and handy that way. Now, if you can find a copy of this book, I would recommend picking it up. I don't think you'll regret it, and it's really very helpful. And I've had a lot of useful information come out of this book, and I've used it a lot over the years, so I highly recommend this book too. I've got a finished object I'd like to show you. Earlier in the podcast, I mentioned I had that small mini haul from Hobby Lobby, and I picked up that gray color. I think it was called Baby Toy Elephant. It was a toy elephant. It was a chunky yarn in gray. And I said I saw a hat in my future. Well, the hat's done, and I wanted to share it with you. I really like the pattern I used. I went on Ravelry, and it's a free download. Like the pattern, I think it worked up quite well, and it'd be a nice pattern for someone who's just beginning. and wants to experiment a little bit with knit and purl stitches and using them interchangeably, be a great pattern to start with on that. It was a simple pattern, I thought, and it's a quick knit. I want to show it to you, and here it is. I made just a couple little changes on it. Get it closer where you can see it a little bit better. I like the stiff definition in it. On the brim, I used the twisted rib stitch, and basically all that is you knit in the back of the stitch rather than the front. And you can see like the purl here. It's really a nice lattice stitch. I'm going to have to block it so you can see the definition of it a little bit better, but I really like the stitch definition in this. Hopefully you can see that pretty good. And it was a real quick knit. I was able to put this together in about a day and a half, and I figure it probably took me maybe 4 hours total to knit this, and I'm a moderate knitter. I'm not real fast. I'm not super slow, but I'm not real fast either. I really envy those folks that can just whip right through things. I'm not that fast at it. I have a moderate speed. So anyway, I really, really like this. I think you will too. I've inserted a picture so you can see this a little closer up. And I wanted to recommend that. And it's by Yaya Loves to Knit. And like I said, it's a free Ravelry download. It takes US 8 and 9 knitting needles. So that's a 5. That's the 8. That's, you do the brim with your 8. And then you take the 9 and do the body of the hat with it. And the 9 is a 5.5 millimeter. And it calls for bulky or chunky weight yarn. And this is from the Hobby Lobby Baby Bee Sweet Delight Chunky. And as I said, that was from my Hobby Lobby mini haul that I talked about earlier in the podcast. And it's in the Toy Elephant colorway. And this yarn is very soft. I'm going to look to see if I can find some more of this. This was a discontinued color. I'm hoping I might be able to find this in a different color, but oh my, is it soft. It's just really, really, really nice and soft. It's got a little bit of a halo to it too. I don't know if you can see it there on camera, but I really would recommend this yarn if you can find it. Really nice. It took the entire skein to make it, and I believe it was 100 yards? 109 yards. And I had maybe, I don't know, 20 feet of, maybe not, probably 15 feet of yarn left. So maybe 5 yards. And I'll probably end up putting a fur pom-pom on here. And I think I mentioned in my first podcast that I'd make fur pom-poms myself. And maybe in the next podcast or maybe one following, I'll do a little tutorial on how I do that. But I think I'm going to probably put a little fur pom-pom on this one. And I really like that. Just really like that pattern. I would recommend that. I like this so well that I decided I want to make another hat. I had some more chunky yarn. And this is, I got this at Michael's about a year ago. It was another one they had on sale. It's discontinued. It's Lion Brand, Woolies Tonal. It's the hat I got started. It's in the Buttercup colorway. And I'm doing a little bit of a modification to it. I like the twisted rib stitch. I think it really makes the stiff definition pop. So I'm carrying that up here where you see the knitted stitches. So they pop a little bit more. And all that is, instead of working in the front of the stitch, you work in the back. Very simple to do. If you're not sure on that, just check out, there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube on how to do the twisted rib stitch. But I really like that. I think it gives it some definition in regard to the ribbing. It really pops. But I like that colorway too in that yarn. It's nice and soft too. It's got the wool in there. I'm hoping it'll wash up. Maybe it's got just a little bit of scratchy to it, but it's more soft. It's not as soft as this, but I do like it. And like I said, I really recommend this pattern. highly recommend it. And I should hopefully, I had enough yarn from the other one to do this, and this is a comparable in terms of the yardage, so I should have plenty enough to finish this one too. But if you're looking for a quick knit, nice warm hat, I would say go ahead, go to Ravelry and download that pattern from Yaya Loves to Knit. She's got a number of other hat patterns there that are free. I'm going to check those out later on. I'm thinking those are pretty nice too, and I'm going to probably take a few of those and give them another shot too. But I really like that pattern there. I think it was really, it's simple, but it looks nice. And I just want to give you a progress update on the shawl design that I'm working on. I showed this, I've been showing this right along on the podcast, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update where I'm at right now. I'm about half done with it. And I wanted to give you the colors, if you can see the green. Yeah, you can kind of see it in this light. I'm going to hold it. Yeah, there you know. I can see the green in there. The green flecks, and there's peach flecks in there. This main color. And it starts out with this color. And I'm incorporated the peach and the green in this to alternate. So I've got the main, whoops, this way. The main color, alternated with peach, main color, then alternated with green. Then I've got the main color with some eyelets, alternated with the peach, then the main color again, alternated with the green, then the main color, and then the peach again. And this is it's an asymmetric shawl. And I hope to have this done within the next 6 weeks or so, hopefully. And this will be a free pattern. Once I do get it done, I'll put the pattern out there on my blog, and you'll be able to download that for free if you're interested. And should be a fairly easy knit for everybody. Something kind of, if you're a beginner, it'd be an easy one to start with. If you're an experienced knitter, it would be kind of like a mindless knit you could do in front of the TV. So that should be out hopefully in the next 6 weeks or so. And I will put that on my blog once it's done. And those of you that are interested, I put the show notes. I have one pattern right now for free out there. I think I mentioned that earlier. That bathroom tissue cozy. And my blog is crochet, knit and more with Suzee.blogspot.com. So anyway, that's just a bit of a roundup on my finished object, one, glad to have one, and a couple of my works in progress. This concludes this episode of Crochet, Knit and More with Suzee. And I want to thank you returning viewers for stopping back and watching me again. And I also would like to really thank the new viewers for joining me for the first time. And if you could, all of you, if you hit the like button below. And also if you would hit the subscribe button. That way you won't miss any of the future episodes coming up. And also, too, if you leave me some comments, let me know what you'd like to see on future episodes. That would be helpful, too. That way I won't be doing this in a vacuum. If there's anything you'd like me to talk about regarding crochet, knit, or more, just let me know. I will probably in some future episodes be doing a little bit more with sewing. I got a couple projects, some of the simple projects I plan on doing down the road. So anyway, if you want to leave me a couple comments below, let me know what you'd like to see coming up. And at the end of this video, I'm going to leave a couple pictures or post a couple pictures to kind of give you guys an idea what it looks like out of my front window. We're pretty much at the height of the fall color now. And it'll give you an idea what it looks like out my window. So, thanks so much for watching. And until the next time, I wish you all happy and affordable crochet, knitting, and more. So goodbye for now.